Gary, now 81 years old, has spoken publicly about his decision to leave the show that catapulted him to fame. Not only did he want to move on from a successful role, but there were also some major issues behind the scenes that contributed to his decision to leave MASH. Gary Berghoff's life is interesting and complex, spanning from his beginnings as a jazz drummer to his forays into the film and television industries. Gary Burghoff left the hit TV series MASH for many reasons, and we'll look into those and more as we unravel the complex web of his life. Although he spent his childhood in Clinton, Gary Burghoff was actually born in Bristol. His folks moved to Delavan, Wisconsin after a while. From the very beginning, Gary's life was full of unexpected turns. The rare birth defect known as Poland syndrome, after the British surgeon Alfred Poland, affected him at birth. His left hand was noticeably smaller than his right hand due to this condition, which affected 3 fingers. Gary persisted in following his dreams in spite of this obstacle. He honed his drumming skills and picked up tap dancing techniques. Practicing with smaller fingers on one hand while playing the drums must have required a great deal of perseverance. Gary experienced acting for the first time in Wisconsin with the Belfry Players of Williams Bay, a community theater company that encouraged him to pursue his passion. With this chance, he was able to hone his stage presence. Gary left Delavan Darien High School in 1962 with the determination to pursue acting professionally. He hopped on a plane to New York and enrolled in the prestigious HB studio in Greenwich Village. It was not easy to live in New York City. Gary worked as an underwear salesperson at the posh Saks Fifth Avenue department store to pay for his schooling. His love for music, though, remained constant. He assembled a trio known as the We Three and began performing jazz in area nightclubs. Gary could pursue his acting dreams while still pursuing his love for music in this way. The people closest to Gary's heart had a major impact on his path. His mom, Anne Berghoff, was a former professional dancer and theater director, and Dad, Rodney, was an employee at a clock company. Gary was probably motivated to follow his creative path by seeing a combination of artistic ability and hard work in his family. David, his older brother, was someone he was likely close with throughout their formative years. A major milestone for Gary was his enrollment at New York City's HB studio. The studio had a reputation for producing numerous famous actors. It gave him the education and training he needed to make it big in the acting industry. As Gary worked to perfect his skills and get ready for a career in entertainment, his perseverance and hard work began to bear fruit. Despite the obvious cultural shock from his life in Wisconsin, Gary made rapid adjustments to New York City life, juggling his acting classes, performances with the We Three, and job at Saks Fifth Avenue. The years he spent in New York were formative for his professional life. One thing that sets Gary different is his extraordinary capacity to overcome physical obstacles. Another is his early involvement in the performing arts, dance, music, and acting. Perseverance and passion are the driving forces behind his story. Gary never allowed the fact that he was born with Poland syndrome, which presented its fair share of challenges, to deter him. He turned it into a driving force that would propel him to greater heights in his pursuit of his goals. Drawing on his training at HB Studio and his time with the Belfry Players, Gary persisted in his acting career. Because of his hard work and natural talent, he was able to land roles that really brought his talents to light and brought him fame in the entertainment world. From a sleepy Wisconsin town to the exciting streets of New York City, that is the inspiring story of Gary Berghoff. It exemplifies the power of perseverance, self-sacrifice, and a loving family to realize one's ambitions. Gary was completely devoted to his interests at all times, whether it was selling underwear, playing jazz, or studying drama. Gary Berghoff's portrayal of Charlie Brown in the 1967 off-Broadway production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown was a watershed moment in his acting career. It showcased his talent and brought him recognition in the theater world. Gary jumped at another thrilling opportunity a year later. in 1968 when he joined a band named The Relatives as their drummer. Notably, Linda Carter, who would subsequently become famous for her role as Wonder Woman on TV, was the band's vocalist. For 3 months, the Relatives played in the lounge of the Sahara Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Gary was able to follow his passion for music and make a lifelong friend in Linda Carter through this. Because of how close they were as friends, they made an appearance together in a later episode of Wonder Woman's popular series, The New Adventures of Wonder Woman. There wasn't a single part that Gary couldn't pull off. OG was his role at the Long Wharf Theater in New Haven in Finian's Rainbow, and he was Eugene in Look Homeward Angel at the Music Theater in Rochester, New Hampshire. Among his other stage credits are Babes in Arms, Bells Are Ringing, The Sound of Music, and Tea and Sympathy. These roles gave him valuable experience and allowed him to refine his acting abilities. The CBS variety show Repertoire Workshop was Gary's first foray into television in the 60s. His stint on television would only begin after this. He was able to gain more exposure and opportunities in the entertainment industry through his appearances on The Today Show and national educational television's An Evening Journey to Conway, Massachusetts. The part of Charlie Brown in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown marked a watershed moment in Gary's career. Even the outer critics circle gave the play a good review. Gary performed the role more than 1,000 times over the course of the show's run, which spanned 1 year in NYC and 2 in LA, due to the exceptional quality of his performance. Renowned filmmaker Robert Altman was captivated by this extraordinary commitment and skill. Gary was offered a screen test by Altman after his performance. As a result of this opportunity, Gary was able to advance in his career, which opened doors to even more thrilling roles down the road. The fact that Gary was always up for a new challenge was a major factor in his success. Gary had boundless energy and commitment whenever he had the chance to perform, whether it was in a musical, a play, or a band. As a result of his varied life experiences, he is an exceptionally versatile performer with enhanced abilities. In 1970, Gary Berghoff had his big screen debut in Robert Altman's legendary film, MASH. He established himself as a major player in Hollywood with his portrayal of Radar O'Reilly in this picture. Gary was the only original cast member to remain as a regular playing Radar on the TV series MASH, though many others made cameo appearances. The film version of Radar, played by Gary, was darker in tone than his TV series portrayal of the character. The character's trajectory, however, began to shift once the TV series premiered. The show followed a team of highly educated doctors and a head nurse as they were stuck in a war zone when they would have preferred to be somewhere else. Gary began to shape Radar into a more innocent and naive character with the assistance of writer and creative executive Larry Gelbart. This transformation set Radar apart from the other characters. Now his reactions are based on pure innocence, in stark contrast to their critical and analytical viewpoints. Gary's genuine affection for nature informs Radar's renowned penchant for tending to animals. Because of his deep love for animals, he was known as the Birdman of Malibu. He and his ex-wife Janet ran a wildlife sanctuary out of their Malibu home, which was the only one of its kind in California at the time. The zoo that Radar runs in the series was modeled after this sanctuary. Gary was one of the original cast members from the 1970 film MASH, who got a role in the TV show. He thought Radar should have a real first name, so he gave him Walter, after a childhood friend who had trouble getting into practical jokes. Larry Gelbart concurred and infused Radar with some of Gary's traits, such as his affinity for the outdoors. The acting community held Gary in high esteem as a gifted listener. He made sure Radar had this quality by making him listen with his heart as well as his ears, even when the camera wasn't on him. Together with Gelbart, he developed this quality further, elevating Radar to legendary status. For his work in MASH, Gary was nominated for an Emmy more than once. He was named the series' Best Supporting Actor in 1977 by the Emmys. Ironically, he was fishing that year, so he skipped the award ceremony. Alan Alda, who is also a star on MASH, used the opportunity to compliment Gary, describing him as superb, talented, and wonderful. One of Gary's closest friends on set, McLean Stevenson, who played Colonel Henry Blake, once said that Gary was the best actor on MASH. When Stevenson's character left the show at the end of Season 3, it was one of the most memorable moments of the show. Up until the very end, the actors had no idea that Henry's plane had been shot down and that no one had survived. Just now, Gary gave a convincing performance as Radar, who broke the bad news that he would no longer be working with Stevenson, entered the operating room. His emotional reaction was spot on. The 1996 heart attack death of McLean Stevenson had a profound impact on Gary. He was one of the most compassionate and understanding people he had ever worked with or known, and he attended the memorial service for Stevenson to convey his condolences. Gary's sincere remarks underscored the profound connection they had. From his first film role in MASH to his now iconic role in the TV series, Gary Berghoff's career is a testament to hard work, skill, and enthusiasm. Radar O'Reilly became a fan favorite on MASH, thanks to his remarkable character adaptability and his sincere affection for animals. His performance as Radar, which was both emotionally charged and technically brilliant, had an indelible impression on viewers and co-workers. For his portrayal of Radar O'Reilly on the comedy series, Gary Burghoff received 6 Emmy Award nominations, including one for Outstanding Supporting Actor. In 1977, he was the recipient of one of these Emmy nominations. Unfortunately, he wasn't there to accept the trophy. Alan Alda, his co-star, did it instead. Because of exhaustion and a need to spend more time with his family, Gary departed MASH in 1979 following the 7th season. His time spent working on the show was interfering with his role as a father, in his opinion. He came back the next year to film a 2-part series finale called Goodbye Radar. "I came to value my family above all else," as he put it. "Due to my job, I was unable to be there for my children as a father. That continues even after the job is done. Every time you take the family out, you have to deal with the pressure to be noticed." Originally scheduled for the 7th season, the Goodbye Radar episode was expanded into a double episode for the November sweeps of the following season. Mike Farrell, another cast member, attempted to convince Gary to remain on the show by bringing up the unremarkable careers of McLean Stevenson and Larry Linville, 2 former regulars on MASH. In retrospect, Farrell acknowledged that Gary Berghoff was among the company's top performers. "I was astounded by his laser-like focus and knack for spotting the subtle behavioral cues that proved his points." Written for Susie Coulter's 1984 guide, The Complete Book of MASH, Gary detailed his reasons for leaving the show. He drew parallels between his departure and a biblical rule that states one is free after serving for 6 years. In his later years on the show, Gary revealed that he was suffering from burnout, a condition that he had not yet identified. "You work harder to achieve the things you think you are lacking," according to Gary's writing, "because the disillusionment of working in a changing world is so great. When you put in more effort but see no results, you start to freak out and eventually reach burnout, a state of near-total energy depletion." He went so far as to list the mental and physical signs of burnout and suggest that anyone experiencing them read Burnout by Dr. Herbert Freudenberger. Unanticipated ways occurred in Gary's life as a result of the role's pressure. According to what he said in Coulter's book, he had no new acquaintances named Gary for 7 years. Instead, only Radar did. Because of this, his family life became more difficult. He tied the knot a year before MASH premiered, had a child while the show was airing, and then left MASH, leading to a breakup with his wife. A radio interview claims that after Gary remarried, he relocated to be near his ex-wife so that they could continue to share parenting responsibilities for their children. Divorce, he emphasized, is always between 2 adults, never between a parent and their children. While filming his farewell episode, director Charles S. Dubin recalled that Gary was experiencing marital problems. During a scene where Gary had to say goodbye to a nurse he fell in love with at the airport, he broke down in tears. Gary needed assistance processing his emotions, and Dubin recalled taking him for a walk around the Fox lot. The script's subject matter was so close to his own personal issues at home that he assumed Gary had an emotional reaction. The show's impact on Gary's personal life was something he admitted to. His family life took a hit after the first 3 years, so he cut down on his show appearances, he wrote. When he announced his intention to leave, he remembered the network's hesitant reaction. According to him, year 7, all I could really think about was being able to take a year off to be with my daughter. The rumors that Gary's departure was due to problems on set continued even after he explained it. Even though he was a nice guy, Dubin said that Gary never felt like he was getting his fair share. Gary had trouble keeping to his call times due to insomnia and other sleep-related issues, as pointed out by executive producer Burt Metcalf. Metcalf did, however, compliment Gary, stating that he wasn't as thrilled with the show as everyone else and was eager to go on. Raymond Straight's 1983 biography of Alan Alda detailed Gary's on-set conflicts, which included an angry altercation with Henry Blake actor McLean Stevenson and an awkward meeting with Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John. Regardless of these incidents, Gary insisted that his negative emotions were necessary for the show. Stories have been written about my irritability on the set, which I think were unfair, he wrote in The Complete Book of MASH. He went on to say, they never focused on others' irritability. We all cared a great deal about MASH and each other. Gary believed that his reactions during his last 2 seasons were not brutal, but rather animated and courteous. Several individual considerations appear to have contributed to Gary's choice to depart from the program, looking back. For him and his loved ones, it seemed like the ideal choice. The part of Radar O'Reilly on MASH catapulted Gary Berghoff to fame. But that wasn't the end of his acting career. Throughout his career, he had numerous memorable moments and made guest appearances on numerous television shows and movies. Let's examine his journey in greater detail. In the 70s and 80s, Gary appeared on a number of game shows. Gary was a popular guest on quiz shows that focused on lighthearted banter and entertaining question-and-answer sessions such as Match Game, Tattletales, Liars Club, Hollywood Squares, and Show-Offs. But game shows weren't his only outlet. He also made a significant film appearance in the critically acclaimed BS I Love You, demonstrating his range as an actor by bridging the gap between television and the big screen. There was more television appearances by Gary. To keep himself in the public eye and demonstrate his versatility, he guest starred in one episode of both The Love Boat and Ellery Queen. The role of Radar O'Reilly on MASH was one of Gary's most famous performances. Everyone adored Radar because of his sweet personality and generosity. After MASH ended, Radar's character made an appearance in 2 episodes of the first season of a spin-off series called After MASH. However, that was far from Radar's last appearance. There was an additional spin-off series named Walter, which aired exclusively in the Central and Eastern time zones. The show's rarity belied the audience's devotion to Radar. We appreciate you coming along as we trace his path. For more stories about the legends who shape our cultural landscape, subscribe and hit the bell if you enjoyed this video. Stay safe and continue exploring until our paths cross again.